Time. Welcome. Bob Ross believes in happy accidents, and so do I. But when it comes to producing extraordinary coffee, controlling every variable and understanding what each one contributes is key. Up until the last few years of scientific research and advancement, we'd attribute most flavors to happy accidents. But now, more than ever, we have the ability to pinpoint exactly where flavor comes from. So let's begin. Coffee I'm serving you today is a result of the happy accident of red and yellow Bourbon cross-pollinating. Lucy Fernanda Galindez produces exquisite pink Bourbon on her farm, Finca Buena Vista, located at 1,800 meters above sea level in San Agustin, Colombia. Now, since pink is a recessive trait, Lucy has to work painstakingly hard to ensure that she's producing only pink Bourbon. Now, she processes all of her coffee as fully washed on her small wet mill. Now, if we were to cup that coffee blind today, it would cup like a beautiful washed geisha, loaded with great florality, stone fruit, and an elegant acidity. But while preparing for this competition 2 years ago, we wondered if there was any way to pull out even more flavor by processing it slightly different. So we reached out to the processing mastermind, Diego Bermudez of Finca El Paraiso. After consulting both with Diego and Lucy, we all agreed, let's give this a shot. Now, after much coordination with Lucy and her team, they picked the pink Bourbon at its peak brick count early in the morning. Then, our importing partner and friend, Jose Hadir of Osido Coffee, load up that cherry and then he drives it 3 hours over the mountains to Diego's farm. And when you arrive at Diego's farm, it's almost like a scene cut straight out of Breaking Bad. We got bioreactors, we have lab coats, we have microscopes. Now, once Diego and his team instantly get that coffee, they get to work. First by sanitizing it, washing it with ozonated water. This is to ensure that they have 100% completely controlled fermentation. Next, they take the cherry, they place it into a bioreactor for 48 hours, 65 degrees Fahrenheit, pressurizing that tank to 20 psi. Now, at the end of this first stage of fermentation, they collect all that juice, also known as biomass, and they use it to inoculate local yeast and bacteria at a specific ratio. They then pulp the coffee, collect all that juice, all those enzymes, place it into another bioreactor. We repeat the same process, 48 hours, 65 degrees, but this time we continue to increase the pressure throughout the duration of the processing. Now, this is where all of the magic happens. It's where all those physicochemical and biochemical reactions take place. Now, in order to lock in all of that beautiful flavor that Diego just created, he does what he calls a thermal shock. This is where he heats up the bioreactor to 105 degrees for 30 minutes. It opens up all those cellular walls of the coffee. He then crashes that fermentation in 50-degree water, locking in all of those beautiful flavors. Now, this works off of the principle of mass transfer, where this works off of the principle of like blanching vegetables and placing them into an ice bath. And then lastly, to lock in even more flavor, Diego puts that coffee into his proprietary dryers that work off the principle of mass transfer. This is where it dehumidifies the coffee, drying it from the inside out. Now, today I'm dosing 20 grams in, 40 grams out at around 26 seconds. Now, when I set these in front of you, I'd ask that you'd first assess the crema and please wait to taste. Now, there are 40% of volatile compounds that never make it into our cup. In order to capture all of those beautiful flavors that I don't want anyone to miss out on, I've extracted them over frozen cubes. That locks in all that flavor. It works off of the principle of compound chilling. Let's write down some tasting notes. In the cup, you're going to experience a juicy, ripe, canned yellow peach, Rainier cherry, oolong tea, and a pleasant, lingering 70% fruity dark chocolate. Now for your tactile, it is medium in weight, it is very soft, it is round, and pleasantly coating that pleasant lingering dark chocolate finish. Please follow your normal judge's protocol, stirring 3 times in place of dirty spoons in the white cups. Hope you enjoy it.
Let's give it up for those espressos!
Just a couple more seconds and we'll move on. You guys ready to move on? All right. Now, Diego's processing is by no means a happy accident. But what does it do to that coffee? It takes all those beautiful flavors that were inherent in Lucy's coffee to begin with, it laser focuses them and transforms them. By Diego understanding what each principle is and does, he's able to manipulate it and control it. Repeating it every time. It's like we're able to repeat a roast profile on the stronghold. And we roasted this coffee for 9 minutes, giving us a development time ratio of 16%. Now, the slightly more aggressive roast allowed us to penetrate the coffee, pulling out loads of sweetness without compromising the fruit or that elegant acidity. Let's write down some tasting notes for our milk beverage. You're going to experience a slightly salted butterscotch, chocolate mousse, and right as you're getting ready to write down those scores in your retro nasal, you're going to get a caramelized peach. Now, in order to match the precision of processing and growing of Lucy's coffee, add a turn to milk cryodesiccation for your milk beverage. Now, freeze-to-seal milk is incredible, but we found it to be very inconsistent from batch to batch. Milk cryodesiccation, on the other hand, is the same process, giving us the same results every time. Now, this 24-hour process begins by freezing the milk, then applies gentle heat while keeping it under a vacuum, removing all of the water through sublimation, leaving behind all the delicious fats, the sugars, and the proteins, concentrating the milk up to 900%. I then take 30 grams of that cryodesiccated milk, and I rehydrate it with 320 grams of that same original milk that we started with. Now, this not only increases the sweetness of the milk, but it also gives us a wonderful velvety texture. The thing I love the most is that this is where we found the most balance between Lucy's beautiful, sweet, fruity milk and that sweet, creamy, cryodesiccated milk. If you miss those tasting notes, once again, you got that slightly salted butterscotch, that chocolate mousse, and right as you're getting ready to score, that caramelized peach. Hope you guys enjoy this as much as I do. Thank you.
Let's have a round of applause for those milk beverages.
Thank you. About 10 more seconds, we'll move on if you guys are ready. All right, you guys ready? Now, in order to match the precision of processing and roasting and trying to create something that's just easily as repeatable, I wanted to create a signature drink. Now, fruit is very inconsistent with its sweetness and its flavors, so I decided to turn to the sugars and the acids that we find in fruit and use them as my ingredients. This allowed me to transform Lucy's coffee into something completely new that only works for her espresso. So we started with 80 grams of that espresso I've been allowing to chill in the hyper chiller without dilution. Next, I'm going to be adding 20 grams of a fructose simple syrup that is both sweet and tart. Now I made this syrup by blending equal parts of fructose and water. Now, fructose is the sweetness and sugars that we find in fruit, and it gives us a very clean, sweet flavor. That's going to take that Rainier cherry and give us a new flavor of like a hard cherry candy. Now, for the tart side, Lucy's coffee has a fair amount of malic acid. Now, in order to transform and introduce a new note of blood orange, I just have to add 0.2 grams of citric acid. Now, if you add acid to anything, we've got to bring balance back. And being from Nebraska, the only way that we know how to balance things is with butter. So we're blending equal parts to make the syrup, melted butter, water, sugar, and then we've got to stabilize it. So then I blend in 2 grams of the emulsifier 210S. This is going to give us a nice and slick coating texture. Now for the controlled dilution, through the duration of this, I've been allowing 170 grams of fever tree tonic water to off gas to get rid of all the CO2 and carbonation. If you add CO2 to coffee, it creates carbonic acid, which are some off flavors that we do not want. So then the quinine that is in fever tree tonic water is going to give us a new note on a long, lingering, pleasant grapefruit finish. This drink is going to be refreshing, I promise. Now, in order to show the transformative power and remind us that this coffee isn't a geisha, it's pink bourbon, I'm adding odorless, tasteless, natural red food coloring. It turns pink, I promise. All right. Now, one of my favorite things about Lucy's coffee is the beautiful aroma that we get. So I'm going to be adding some dry ice to a white peach tea that has that cryo-desiccated peaches, adding it as an aroma element. Now, in order to homogenize the drink and bring this all together for you, I'm nitrogenating it, giving it a nice pillowy texture. Now, this beverage will be served chilled, not cold, but to not cover up any of those flavor notes. And I would ask that you would wait until I call time before you drink. Let's write down some tasting notes. You're going to experience, let's give this another shake. You're going to experience blood orange, that hard cherry candy, and that pleasant, lingering grapefruit finish. I forgot one right in the middle, pleasant pomegranate juice. Thank you. Now, although there were some happy accidents along this journey, such as connecting new colleagues, discovering the pink bourbon mutation, discovering new processes. It took 2 hard years of collaborating with 2 competing importers, working with 2 farmers, one progressive, one very traditional, all of us sharing the same goal. Thank you. That's to produce an extraordinary coffee that we could repeat year after year. Now, I believe if we want to continue to move this industry forward, it's going to take innovation through collaboration and cooperation from all of us. Now, ask that when I set it down in front of you, you would take off that lid, smell a beautiful peach aroma, swirl it 3 times, and take a minimum of 3 drinks. Hope you guys have enjoyed this as much as I have. I can tell you how much of an honor it is to be on the stage. Thank you so much. Time.
Give it up for Isaiah. Sheese. Oh my goodness. How are you feeling, bud?
Feel good.
Good. Well, from my perspective, you were crushing it.
Oh, thank you.
And I don't know if you guys can see this, but Isaiah's shoes, his whole everything is like so coordinated. It's just beautiful.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Anything you want us to know about this? This is an old hat for you. This is Isaiah's 9th year competing. He's judged 2 years.
Yeah.
And so cumulatively, this is like an 11-year project with the 2 years working on the.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us about that.
Yeah, over the years we've used, starting out lots of smallholder farms that we could just barely afford to serve in our cafes, and then, as you progress, the industry has changed dramatically, and we have, pioneers in the processing world that are producing extraordinary coffees using carbonic maceration and all of bioreactors. I mean, you have Jameson Savages, you've got Diego Bermudez, you've got La Palma, Cafe La Granja, you have all these big farms that have those resources to do those things. And we've used those coffees, and those coffees are extraordinary. I mean, they're the top 1%. A lot of people in the world will never get to taste them. But our heart was always to work with a smallholder farm on the stage. And so to be able to gain that trust of Lucy buying all of her Pink Bourbon for 4 years, and then to gain the trust of Diego, he doesn't need to process coffee for us. He grows incredible geishas. He does amazing things. So to collaborate with 2 importers, 2 producers, and to be able to showcase it here is literally a dream come true.
And this coffee had some challenges getting here, correct?
Yeah. So we had Jose Hadir, which is a partner in Osito Coffee. He and his family, right when Lucy and all 14 of her family members picked all of that cherry, Jose loaded it up and drove it over, dropped it off to Diego. A week later, had to drive back, and then they hand milled it in their office. So
it takes many hands to get here.
It does.
Do you have anybody you want to thank at home or here today?
Yeah, my wife, of course. 11 years is a long time to put up with this amount of stress and anxiety.
Shout out to all the competitors.
Yeah,
partners.
Absolutely. Jason for roasting the coffee. The importers that we mentioned, Osito and Coffee Quest, Diego, Lucy. She's a dear heart and is doing a beautiful coffee. Black and white. John from Topeka, he sponsored me 12 years ago here. And so to have him here and him believe in me, lots of people.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, give it up one more time, everybody, for Isaiah Sheese from Archetype Coffee, Omaha, Nebraska.